Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. It is a new week. It is a blank canvas, and it's time to tell stories and paint new football pictures. And my goodness, what a weekend it has been for the Gunners. Let's rock and roll, squaddies.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Hello. Welcome to Monday Madness, a little earlier than usual, 5 p.m. But as you know, the way we rock and roll here, when the guests go, we go. I am thinking, though, of doing this as a drive time show on Mondays. So let me know what you think in the comments, if you like it earlier or later. Let's see. But let's welcome one of our favourites back. It's been a while. And my goodness, is he a sight for sore eyes, Mr. James Green from Sky Sports News, an all-round epic broadcaster. Welcome back, James.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be back. Good time to join, it feels like.
How are you? How's your summer so far?
Yeah, summer's been good. I went to the motherland for 3 weeks in Cyprus, which was stunning, taking my 5.5-month now old little girl, who is an absolute angel, apart from not letting me sleep too much at night. So that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But we are good. Everybody is healthy. Everybody's well after a pretty traumatic year. Everything feels just good. Calm.
Excellent.
And looking forward now to the new season. So yeah, all good. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're going to get your take on everything. Good evening, squaddies. Good morning, good afternoon, no matter where in the world you might be. Oh, look, the font's changed. Just things happen here. At ease to our Chief Like Officer. Please make sure that you do hit that like and subscribe button. Seb is here. Ian is here. Carol is here. Paul is here. Let's give you all a shout out. Dean's here. Miss Melina is here. Good evening to you and all the rest of the squaddies. Little Soph is here. Good to see you back. Can't wait for this show. Fan of James, of course, who isn't. Bill made it back, which is a good thing. And Harvey, not good, was about to go out for my smoke. Stop the show. There's the first no for the earlier broadcast. PW's here. Simmy's here. The whole fam jam, front row, good one. Got a front row seat. Everyone's here. James, it has been quite an insane window so far. I have to say I'm not a fan. It's getting a little bit old. It's too toxic now. And I don't want to kind of harp on negatives, but I do want to get your take because we've seen some unsavory behavior, which, by the way, saw Stuart McFarlane, the Arsenal photographer, leave X yesterday or today. Can't quite remember.
I think it was today.
Was it today? Yeah, and his statement was very, very clear. My club, my manager, my, and it's just indicative. And I think, of course, a response perhaps to some of the disgraceful behavior we've seen from some Arsenal fans, which has been exceptionally disappointing, to say the least. What's your take on what's happened and on all of this?
So, look, to be honest, I try desperately hard nowadays not to listen, not to read too much into comments on certain platforms. I'm not convinced that a lot of the comments are actually by real fans of Arsenal. I believe a lot of it is possibly other fans trying to stir up tension. We're in an era of rage baiting, and rage baiting seems to bring lots of views. And a lot of people are paid on social media to bring in views and clicks, and by making outrageous comments that seem to be shared around. And it's not just shared on other platforms, on social media. It's not just shared on other podcasts like we're discussing it. This goes and leaks through to mainstream media, where they're discussing the fact that there's been, a petition about a certain signing not coming in. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It frustrates me as somebody who works in mainstream media when I see that leak into there, because actually, when you're talking about a percentage of a fan base, it is probably the tiniest minuscule of a fan base that may have that opinion in such a vicious way. Why are we giving it so much clout? And I don't understand that. So that I'm more frustrated with. I think we're in an era where, look, people are more outrageous with what they think. Sometimes they have something come into their head and straight away, instead of maybe voicing it to a friend or a fellow supporter or WhatsApp message, it's straight on social media in a really aggressive way, or it's filmed in a video. I think you just can't take it too seriously. It's frustrating when it clearly is leaked into, a footballer who has seen comments, has seen this, because it's quite difficult to get away with it when it's spread so wide after a while. And that's frustrating, but you hope that footballers, and the footballer we'll talk about is Madueke, we hope that he doesn't take it too seriously, doesn't take it to heart, and actually understands that it is just such a tiny percentage of people, and not to take it seriously. So, look, I dust it off, but I can tell by your tones you're pretty annoyed by it all.
Yeah, I was really angry. And look, I'm not the perfect fan. And by the way, I think he heard your challenge or something you said. He was going to pop in at 5:30. I did text him 5:30, but then when I put the tweet out, I didn't differentiate the time. So why wait? Why let the great man be in the green room? Let's bring him in, Mr. Tom Canton and James on screen at the same time, squaddies. What more do you want? Tom, how's it going?
How are we doing? All good?
Yeah, we're good. We're just having a chin wag over here,
Tom, how's your friend Andrea Berta?
He's all right. He's fine. He's having a decent summer. Apparently, he's.
You like him now? You like him now?
What do you mean, like him now? What you're saying that like I don't like him? What?
Well, I mean, I remember when we were talking about potentially bringing in a sporting director, you highlighted him as one you didn't want.
What? Really?
Yes, you did. Yeah. See, this is the thing, guys. Some people forget what they say.
I need evidence.
See, Tom, this is different between you and Soph. Soph owns it. When she was struggling with Arteta a little bit, she owned it. She put her hat on and said, "You know what? I made a mistake," which happened.
I really think you've mistaken me for someone else. Genuinely.
Definitely haven't.
I always thought it was like very un-Arsenal, and like it wasn't somebody who was on my radar. But I don't remember turning around to you and saying I don't want him. I mean, if you go back to the first TGT shows of where his name was announced, I guarantee you, I'm not sitting there and saying I don't want him. I really think you've got that confused.
As soon as I get my little one to bed later, I'm going to search for it all and
spend
hours.
I want to see it. I'll hold my hands up 100%.
It'll take me 5 minutes, Tom. 5 minutes.
Tom is the 60-40 guy. That's hilarious, John. You were who's the geezer from Real Sociedad? What was his name again?
What's his name? Roberto. Was it Roberto something? I think it's Roberto something. Real Sociedad.
Who's Google?
Yeah. I mean, one of the squaddies or I'm sure.
Alabe.
Alabe, well done. Yes, Alabe. You were definitely on the Roberto Alabe train.
Yeah, he was someone that I said would make sense 100%. We would kind of link in with what we've had, and he had those links to Arteta, and I think their views would be very aligned. But I think we've really benefited from having a different type of kind of persona in Berta to do things in a different way. And I'm really pleased because I always wanted him there, and James is lying. So,
well, there's no doubt that Berta is cooking, and we're going to get to that. And he's been cooking from, I keep bringing this picture up as a reminder to the squaddies because it's very important that we not forget some of these deals that have been done, and Saliba and Saka positively on their way, we believe. But he has been a smooth operator, no doubt about that. James, just to get back to your point, I've been really annoyed. And as I said, I'm not the perfect fan. And in fact, I was going back and forth on X with someone yesterday who's a season ticket holder, very ingrained in going to the stadium and being part of that community. And, you know, because I called out some of the people I adore who have been on this show, who I think have voiced their opinions in a negative way. And if that makes me a hypocrite, which basically is what I was called, then so be it. I own all of my stuff, right? So there was a time where I didn't want Mikel Arteta, that I couldn't see the path forward. But I don't think, in my defense, I was vitriolic or, just super kind of venomous. I do believe that even if, for example, I've stood behind the Madueke signing, if he starts off and he doesn't play well, I'm going to voice my opinion and have an opinion about the fact that he's not playing well. I don't believe that makes someone a flip-flopper. I just think in our business, it's constructive criticism. So I believe that things went too far last week. They went too far with some of the podcast community. It went too far with like the media. It went way too far with some of our fans. And I believe they've taken Madueke's moment away from him. And that's the part that I can't stand. And that's the part that I, was standing up for. Here's a guy who is probably the most, I didn't think there'd be a more polarizing signing than Kai Havertz. And Kai Havertz must be thinking, wow, welcome, kid, because you've taken the heat off me a little bit. And I just think that this is a dream move for him, his family. I thought Rio Ferdinand's post was spot on, although Rio should kind of do maybe the same for Manchester United players. So, yes, I don't know if I've explained that very well, but that's kind of my piece on it.
Yeah, you explained it in terms of you can have a different opinion, but there's a way of wording it. There's a way of acting. And unfortunately, we're in an era where outrage seems to be the thing that everybody has to do. So people have to express things in an angry way. They have to be toxic. They have to then often stick to their point, and they won't be swayed, which I, again, find quite fascinating. Actually, if you bring it into the wider scale of the world, it feels like we're in that way in terms of like political atmosphere as well. You kind of pigeonhole one side and you mustn't leave. So regardless of what happens, you kind of ignore it all because it's your point of view, if that makes sense. But yeah, look, Sophie, you're right. And it's disappointing. It's disappointing to see some of the people that you mentioned, season ticket holders. I've seen a few that I've interviewed over the years as well, who I have good relationships with. And I've seen some of the outrage that they've been putting online, and I don't agree with it. I think it's too much. I think it's so over the top. But again, the reason why they're doing it is rage baiting. It's a business model, which is ridiculous, but that is where we're at right now. That's the reality.
Well, let's get to some positives, Tom, because there's big news this weekend, the signing that everyone's been waiting for, this photo courtesy of Fabrizio Romano, the signing that everyone said should have come first. Because now we want the club to sign players in the order of which, we want. I was trying to explain to the squaddies who are actually more reasonable, is that when you shoot a film, you actually don't shoot the last, the first scene first. The Gyökeres news softens the blow. A lot of people backtracking. There's been Mosquera news, but let's start with the big gun here. Tom?
Yeah, what a relief, I think. That was genuinely my first kind of emotion, was relief, and then that grew into excitement, because I'm relieved in general, no matter who it was, just that the saga of this striker scenario is done, finally, over, and we have our number 9 coming in, regardless of who it was. I very much was on the Sesko kind of preference, and I was 60-40 with those two, and, I think that gets misconstrued. It's like we talk about the Madueke stuff. We talk about how people react online. It's almost like people started to, we have the Arsene Wenger out and in and Arteta out and in. It started to become like that with Gyökeres and Sesko for so many people, and that you'd actually have to take a side. You had to pick one or the other. And I was very much where I kind of see the sense in Sesko a bit more, but not at the price tag that Leipzig were asking for. And Arsenal, in the end, have managed to get a really smart deal done for Gyökeres. Not, giving in, not doing what so many people said by just paying the money. Just pay the money, just get it done. Get over the line, just pay it. Don't matter what it costs, just pay it. Buy the player. That's not how negotiations work. And that's not how you do business successfully. That's not how you keep yourself free to do further business that you might need later on in the window, as well as we hope that, we might. And so Arsenal have managed to get this deal done. And obviously with the help of the agent foregoing a fee, I imagine that, I don't imagine he's doing this for free. I imagine there'll be somewhere along the line that a financial reward will be there in some shape or form. But obviously without that clause being activated, that 70 plus 10 clause, it means, of course, that Arsenal have got their man in and we move now. So he's a player, of course, that Arsenal have wanted, or rather has been on a list of Arsenal's for longer than just this summer. I first became aware of their interest, leading into the 2024 window, let alone the 2025 one. Sesko was still very much, of course, a big figure for them, and they obviously had talks around a transfer before the European Championships. That didn't happen. Sesko didn't really show anywhere close to, obviously, the willingness that Gyökeres has shown to want to make this move happen then. And that's a little bit similar to now. I don't think that the personal terms were ever an issue for Sesko. It was always going to be about the price tag that Leipzig wanted. But with Gyökeres, Arsenal have got themselves a player, of course, now who's got a lot to prove, a huge goal record away from England and away from Europe's top 5 leagues. And now it's about translating that into the Premier League.
James, this is a huge move for Arsenal. Really, since Aubameyang, we haven't had a recognised striker. Kai, I thought, and did a great job. I still believe that he's going to be Mikel's first choice come that first game of the season. Gyökeres, does he take Arsenal over the edge? If we had a Gyökeres, maybe not last season with all the injuries, but the previous season, do Arsenal win the title? What's your take on him improving the team?
Yeah, it's a good question. You'd have to say probably yes, because of how tight the title race was a couple of seasons ago. Going down to the last match of the season, if the difference was just a striker who could score, you'd have to say, considering his recent record, maybe 20 goals a season, you'd say that could have been the difference between winning and losing it. So look, it's a really big deal. It's the most Arsenal have ever spent on a striker as well. There's a reason why these deals take time, because it's a lot of money involved. It's complicated. It's not all forward. It is why, that word patience, I just wish people would have it again. I wish it would exist again in life. It's just gone from everybody's life. I still blame Google for that. But look, it's a really big deal. And he's a player that, as Tom says, has a lot to prove. But the difference, say, between him and Sesko is that Gyökeres is that guy now. He's that guy right now with Champions League experience, scoring a bucket load of goals. I'm not saying Sesko hasn't played in the Champions League, but he's scoring a bucket load of goals in his prime at 27. This Arsenal squad are primed to win now. They're not primed to wait until Sesko maybe adapts to the Premier League and takes a bit of time to just grow into himself, because I don't think he's the ready-made product yet. I think there's more to come from him. I think that's one of the big reasons why Gyökeres was maybe preferred at the end. I know the deal for Sesko in particular and the money involved, Arsenal weren't really willing to go there. I think it's a very good deal. I think it pushes them closer, but also what pushes them closer is all the other deals going on right now and the depth now being built in the squad. And look, I'm sure we'll get on to Madueke again, but we need these players because our squad was thin. And last season, when we had a few injuries, we suffered. We all could just go back and have a look at that. I mean, it's the first leg against PSG in the semi-final. You look at that bench. 4 of those youngsters on the bench are no longer at the football club. 4 of those youngsters were released. We looked at that bench and we had Tierney, we had Zinchenko, we had Sterling, literally our only options. We need that. So having a striker like Gyökeres gives options. And you made a really interesting point. And this is what Mikel Arteta is going to have to deal with, because Kai Havertz may well start that first game. I think, someone's just commented, may well start against Manchester United. But what it does, it offers you now another option. It offers you a different option, a player that is unique and somebody that we haven't got at Arsenal. And that is exciting for me. It's really exciting as a fan that we've got now more options going forward, because we really lacked them last year. So exciting times. Glad it's finally done. Glad people can stop moaning and now just enjoy it now.
Yeah. Joe, you're funny. I'm before the internet when we had to use Microsoft Encarta.
Me too.
I could go even further back. There were things called the encyclopedia. I remember, back in the day when I was at school, there was no Googling, Tom.
Like a thesaurus, right? There you go. Right there.
Door-to-door salesman of encyclopedias back in the day,
I love it. If you have any questions for James and Tom, put a Q in front of it and I'll ask them, because sometimes your questions are far more interesting than mine. But Tom, the big question is, in a lot of the squaddies in the chat, everyone thinks Kai Havertz is going to start day one. I think you think Kai Havertz is going to start day one. But it's funny, Gooner was on the other day along with a few of our other great listeners. We've had a couple of fan phone-ins and we were rattling off the team. And like James just said, when you think about, okay, if Gyökeres starts up front, you've got Kai on the bench. If in at the back, you've got, we're going to get to Mosquera. Kivio's still there, but I'm going to get to you on the outgoings. But when you start rattling off the team, and you look at the players coming in, there's definitely a lot more depth and strength. But in particular, what do you think about Mikel Arteta and Kai Havertz versus Gyökeres?
Well, like the signing of Gyökeres doesn't delete Havertz. I think a lot of people assume that it does, but it doesn't. And we know that Arteta is also a very big fan of Kai Havertz. He really wanted him in that summer transfer window and he got him. And I think Kai Havertz has proven a lot of people wrong, in the time that he's been at the club as well. I'm excited the fact that we've got two, really good options at that centre forwards position, and that we don't have to run players into the ground and overplay players. Havertz, there were games where I remember before that injury he suffered, I think it was maybe at Wolves at the end of that game, he just fell to the ground, absolutely exhausted. And it wasn't long after that, he suffered a really significant hamstring injury. We don't need to go through these periods now of suffering as much as we have done. It wouldn't surprise me if he started the first game at Old Trafford. It really wouldn't. I think a lot depends on pre-season. I think a lot depends on how both players, of course, play during that period. There's a lot of, really kind of positive feeling at Arsenal of how Havertz has come back from this injury, what he's done independently, personally, from a muscular point of view, from an athleticism point of view, how he's returned from this injury. And there's an excitement about what type of player he's going to be, with Gyökeres in the door as well, and that dynamic between them. It means Arsenal are far more competitive across multiple competitions, and it gives us better opportunities to go further in tournaments and protect players as well. So I think having both of these players, and not to forget, at the end of the year, Gabriel Jesus is going to be back as well. Arsenal now we went from a period of having no strikers. Now we've got 4, if you add Mikel Merino into the fold as well. So it's a really, really exciting time for Arsenal in terms of their attacking options. And, we're talking about Gyökeres, but I don't think we're necessarily done bringing in attacking players this window either.
Okay, so before we get to Madueke, Mosquera, I want to ask you about that because, it's so funny. Yesterday, the Gyökeres news breaks and it's true. It's like someone stuck a pin in me. You're relieved. And then people start moaning about something else, right? And, Gooner put it up to instant gratification. Let's move on to the next thing that we can kind of, beat to death or whatever. And James, you look at the midfield situation, for example, and Tom mentioned Mikel Merino, who deputized really well. I thought it was one of Mikel Arteta's bravest move last season to put Mikel Merino up front. I know there were really no options, but you also kind of look at this connection that they had. I know that there were only 3 months where Martin Odegaard and Zubi were together, but chemistry is important. Partnerships are important. Developing partnerships has been, I think, one of Mikel Arteta's greatest achievements in that, early on it was Benjamin White and Saka. You've got Saliba and Gabriel. You've got that connection between Odegaard and Havertz. Talk to me a little bit about Zubimendi coming in. There are a lot of fans who, even someone, am I allowed to say, Tom, that well, say it.
You're asking me for permission, or?
No, I mean, I think, Harry wasn't sold on Zubimendi. There are fans who are not sold on Zubimendi.
I don't think Harry will mind saying that. Harry won't mind you saying. I'll tell you what Tom will mind is being told he doesn't want Andrea Berto, and never said, but,
I'm going to find it.
I don't understand fans who are not sold on Zubimendi. Talk to me about that, because in terms of him and the way he plays, and then you add Gyökeres into the mix as well, I'm so excited to see this player, James.
Yeah, me too. Look, I think first of all, a lot of people will say that because they probably haven't seen enough of the player. I think that's one thing. So they jump to conclusions. I think fans look and go, well, hold on a minute. Why is this player not having interest from other clubs, other than big clubs? I think that goes into people's minds. Look, he's going to be a different player to what we've been used to in that central area. I think it's really a relationship you mentioned, but Mikel Merino and Martin Zubimendi are very close, really, really close. Now, when somebody's coming into a new league, to be able to kind of drop into a squad, know one of the players really, really well, and actually know quite a few, is going to help you adapt very quickly. Now, that's key. You know, when any club sign in any players, it's how quickly can they adapt to the Premier League. We've seen it at times when it's taken players 6 months, even a year to adapt to what it's like playing in the Premier League. And it's not just the playing, it's also living in a different culture, a different environment, different language being spoken all the time. The fact that, you know, there's a lot of Spanish in our side, behind the scenes as well, with our manager in particular, will help him settle. But look, it's a lot of people will look and go, well, hold on, where will they fit? Will they work together? Will they not? Well, that's down to the coaching staff to figure that out. That's down to the scouting and recruitment of the club to figure that out, to understand that why we're recruiting these players. We're recruiting them for a certain reason. Mikel Arteta in particular is very particular about the players he wants right now. That's why I think the recruitment has changed and adjusted quite some bit. And for me, it goes back to depth. Now, will Martin Zubimendi play every week? Maybe, if he adapts quickly. But you've got other players in that position. And one that I don't think anybody should paint over, and maybe has been ignored a little bit, is Christian Norgard. I think Christian Norgard is a really good Premier League player. He's efficient in the middle of the park. He's got great leadership skills. He's playing, in my opinion, at the peak of his abilities. 31 years old, had a brilliant season for Brentford last year. And he's going to be playing alongside much better players, which will no doubt raise his level. I don't think we should sleep on him as well, which is then going to add Martin Zubimendi, which then will increase his output. I'm sure about it. So look, it's fans are always going to have opinions. So yeah, we unfortunately, that true fact, opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one, right? That's a fact, and we have to live by that. But you're never going to make everybody happy. But someone like Martin Zubimendi, I think it's a really solid, different signing, somebody we needed in the middle of the park as well. It's just adding to what a brilliant window this is for Arsenal. And if I'm not mistaken, we've still got over half of the window remaining.
It is, I think, so far a great window.
Phenomenal. And they're going on their pre-season tour very soon. I know they want to get the deals in before the players go on the tour, because that's something big within the group. They want those players part of the tour, because when they go on tour, they spend that close time together, continuous time together. Nobody's going home. They're all living together in the same environment. It's great for team bonding. So if they can get those players over the line this week, which looks like that's exactly what they're doing, then it's really positive for us. You can't look at this window any other way, in my opinion.
I'm going to save the questions for a little bit, because you're talking. You know, let's do the thing. Let's do this turnkey, Tom. By the way, James said everyone's together, living together. Why isn't Declan Rice in Marbella?
It's not a concern. He's just following an independent training plan at the Show Realty, so no concern there. Okay.
All right. So let's get Norgard. You and I have talked about, Tom, and James. We're totally in agreement. I am fully behind this signing. We had Natalie Sawyer on talking about him last week. She's watched him play for years. We all know Natalie's very close to what goes on at Brentford. Please catch that show if you want to know a little bit more about Christian Norgard. He is going to be that kind of, leader in the dressing room as well. Maybe hasn't won at the level of Jorginho, but being captain in a Premier League team and working with Thomas Frank, who, he was his voice on the pitch. We need more Norgards. And, speaking of more Norgards, Tom, Mosquera, which seems like another steal. It's like we stole Martin Odegaard from Real Madrid. and it looks like Berta, your friend, is going to steal Mosquera from Valencia, who, by the way, at his age, has already played like 90 games. You can correct me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and tell the squaddies, oh, he's so good. I've seen him play. I've seen him play in some games, but he seems to me like he's got huge potential. He can play immediately, even though he's going to be a backup. But, you know, he'll get games. Talk to me about Mosquera.
Yeah, this is, I mean, Sam Dean did some really good reporting for the Telegraph earlier, breaking kind of the news around the fee. And, you know, he's suggesting Arsenal, he believes, are going to get this done for less, you know, than £15 million, which is a really, really good piece of business by Arsenal. It's one of those deals where you look at other clubs do when a player gets down to a year left on their contract. You're like, why don't we jump in on that one? Why didn't we exploit that situation? You know, we end up paying a lot of money for others. And I think this is just such a smart piece of business by the club. You know, you're bringing in a player that can play, you know, either right-sided centre-half or left-sided centre-half. He's deputised a couple of games even at right-back for Valencia during his time there as well. So if needs must and want, and, you know, we have a situation with Timber and Ben White where neither are available, you are covered in that situation. So I'm really, really pleased that this is an example of Arsenal, again, kind of taking advantage of a scenario for their benefit, bringing in a player that's youthful. I think you could go down two avenues with this. You could either go down the more experienced route, as we have done in midfield with Norgard, or you go down the other end of the spectrum where you bring in a young player to be a deputy to the obvious starters in Saliba and Gabriel. Of all the positions kind of in the field, you know, other than Bukayo Saka, arguably, you know, Gabriel and Saliba's are the most secure, barring injuries. Those two are just difficult to break them up out of a starting 11. So having Kivior, having Mosquera, I think are really two astute, you know, depth options. And if we have those games, you know, where we want to rotate, we want to rest, our second 11 across the board looks really good. You know, he's still young. He's still got a lot to develop. He's quite raw in a number of aspects. You know, his first touch, I think, needs a little bit of work. His distribution is brave, but that can lead him into some dangerous situations. So execution needs to be improved somewhat. But he's got the physicality and the athleticism. He's got speed for a centre-half, which is so necessary during 2025 Premier League football. So it's a really astute piece of business. And also with the cheapness of the deal, of course, it means that we can move for others as well.
Go on, James.
I was going to say, I think if you look at some of the signings we are making, the likes of Gyøkeres 27, Zubimendi's 26, Norgard 31, bit of experience, it shows that not only they're buying players to win now, they're buying players for the future too. And I mean, when you're signing a 21-year-old who's played that many times for Valencia, and he's there for the future for us, it's great, because you can't, for a recruitment team of a club, you can't just look at now. You have to still look at the future. You have to look at what's next in 2, 3, 4 years' time. And that's their job as a recruitment part of the club. And a signing like this just shows they are still looking long term. And that's really important for me, because we can get stuck on just now and ignore the future. Then that can come and bite us on the backside in 3, 4, 5 years' time, when we haven't really invested in those younger players to grow into the Arsenal way and into this group. So, yeah, it's a really positive sign. I don't see a downside to that at all.
Yeah, and this one is a Berta. You know, Tom, a lot has been made of, is Gyökeres I don't think it matters anymore, but I do think it matters that Berta inserted himself, and clearly he's making these things happen. The Madueke deal feels like an Arteta deal. Gyökeres feels like Berta. Mosquera feels like Berta. Norgard feels like, you know, Arteta. Kepa feels like maybe a hybrid. Does it really matter? But the influence of Berta to this point has been, I mean, talk about hit the ground running.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you for a matter of fact, if Arteta wants a player and Berta is adamant that he doesn't, then we don't move for that player, and vice versa. The only way Arsenal move for any player in the market is if there's unification amongst those involved in the recruitment. So it's really easy for us to kind of divvy them up and say one player feels like one person signing and one person feels like another person signing. And there will be certainly like more greater influences in the specific profiles between the players that we're looking at. But they don't move for players unless there is a unified, aligned approach. I think Arteta used that word alignment in one of his press conferences towards the end of the season. Decisions are made when everybody is aligned on a move. And Berta's not going to sign a player for Arsenal that Arteta, categorically does not want. It's not going to happen. And obviously, I don't think Arteta is going to, have enough influence in terms of Berta's execution and the doing of those deals, where if Berta does not categorically think that a player is the wrong choice for Arsenal, that it will happen. It won't. It has to be. He wouldn't have taken the job if he didn't feel he had enough of an influence on the decisions that were going to be made at the club. I'm aware that Berta was following, Mosquera's progress at Atleti, and had he still been at Atleti, I imagine Atleti would have been probably one of those clubs in for him if Berta was still there. And so he's brought those ideas to Arsenal. But to think that Arteta isn't aware, of the young Spanish prospects that are coming up through the ranks in La Liga would be a bit naive, I think. So, they've done that deal. The influence of Berta there, I think, is obviously key. And I think, as we talked about and we were discussing with James, the Gyökeres stuff as well, even though Berta, we know, is a big fan of the player. We know that Arsenal's interest in him predates the arrival of Berta by, about a year. So there's that to think about as well. I just think that it's really difficult sometimes to look at Arsenal without trying to pick a side. And this is just what Arsenal is now. It's a manager, it's a sporting director, it's a unit of a hierarchy. They are working as one to bring in the record-breaking window, potentially, depending on what else we do this window, the greatest summer window maybe ever in Arsenal's history. So it's going to be very, very intriguing to see what happens between now and the end. And as James said, we're not even halfway through it yet.
No, we're not. So let me ask you, I'm going to ask you guys a question, because when you look at, the signings so far, we've, from Mosquera to Gyökeres to Zubimendi to Norgard. And of course, let's not forget finally having a really good backup goalkeeper in Kepa, and, $5 million deal for him. Amazing, right? Let's touch on real quick the EZE situation. James, is this going to be a reality, or are we looking at, maybe not so much?
No, it's a reality that there is interest. It's a reality that representatives of Arsenal are speaking to EZE's representatives. It is a definite reality. It's a reality that I must admit, as a huge EZE fan, excites me immensely. I think he is, utterly perfect for us. Can play on the left, can take the pressure off Nørgaard as well, so we don't have to pump so many minutes into Martin Nørgaard, which I think will keep him fresh and get him back to maybe the form that we saw of him a couple of seasons ago. So the reality, yes, the talks are on the way. It seems a little bit, I think, if you look from the outside, you go, God, it just seems outrageous. How can Arsenal do this? How can we spend all this money? Well, hold on. We have to look at our West London neighbours and the amount of money they're spending. It's all possible. Arsenal as a business generate a hell of a lot of money, which does put us in a position to spend good money. We've also got a lot of assets that I'm certain we'll get to, or maybe you get to in another show, that will likely leave the club in this window and can generate a decent amount of value from. But for EZE, there's certainly interest. It's going to continue. He's got this 60 million release clause, which I look at for a 27-year-old player that's still not peaked yet. I think that's a fantastic deal. And I just think that would be the missing puzzle piece. I think I've said it to both of you. The left-hand side of Arsenal's attack has been a concern of mine for quite some time. I've harped on about it far too much. And I think that's the time, and it seems like they're putting all the stops out. The Cronkies are backing it. I love what you said, Soph, that they're aligned in their decision-making. And like Tom said, whether it's Arteta or Berta, it doesn't matter. They're all as one. They're making these decisions as a collective. And that, for a football club, is how you run a proper football club. This is where other clubs, like Manchester United, for example, have slipped by the wayside because they haven't been run like that. And this is where we should be really proud of what they're doing behind the scenes. But look, EZE, I would love to share news and say, yes, I know this, I know that. I know. All I know is that there is communication. There are talks still ongoing. And I am like every single other Arsenal fan. I am holding my breath. I'm crossing everything because I think that is the one. We get him in. Oh, that would excite me next season. It really would. I'm excited anyway, but I think that's the one that really will get the juices flowing.
It seems the one that would take the fans over the edge, even more so than Rodrygo, I think. Tom, what do you know? Come on, spill the beans.
Well, Arsenal are hoping to do a deal for EZE, below that £67.5 million release clause that's in his contract. But it might be one of the, from my knowledge of what Palace and their stance is it's like a no-go. They have a release clause there that I feel personally is still a bargain for EZE. £67.5 million for EZE moving into the prime years of his career. That's an amount of money that you pay for a player of that age and that bracket of his career at that point of his quality. So Palace are well within their rights to sit there and say, if you want him, you've got to pay the clause. It's as simple as that. And I wouldn't blame them for doing so. And I think Arsenal should pay it, personally, if that's to get the deal done. They're going to obviously negotiate, as they have done in all of their deals so far this summer. They're going to try. You don't just go in and pay the money. I personally would eventually, but you want to put the feelers out. You want to have those discussions. You want to try and get the best deal possible to give yourself that freedom. And obviously there is a little bit of financial pressure now, not in terms of what Arsenal have, what Kroenke has. They have the money, but having spent, 200 million quid, potentially more than that, with the confirmation of players we're going to get this week, we're in a situation now with no outgoings so far, that there's a lot of pressure there to get players gone as well. So you need to balance the books in some ways. You need to work within those restrictions. And Arsenal always want to work comfortably, not up to the line when it comes to those restrictions. They want to work comfortably within them. So, yeah, look, I absolutely hope EZE happens. I hope that we end up paying whatever it takes to get him in the door. Because for me, I know Gyökeres is exciting, but I agree with James. For me, EZE to Arsenal is up there with the signings of the summer.
And you guys are definitely team EZE more than Rodrygo. I mean, I'd never felt like Rodrygo was going to come to Arsenal. I don't know. I love him. I think he's a really good player. You look at EZE's numbers. I'm going to get killed for this, but for me, Madueke and EZE with the Premier League experience, Norgard with the Premier League experience. Rodrygo always felt like an Alexis Sanchez, maybe excitement type signing. But James, are you team Rodrygo or team EZE?
All day long. I am such a huge fan. I think he's so underrated still, actually. I think his quality is immense. He's a unique player. There isn't many EZEs out there. Rodrygo, look, he's a great player. I'm not going to sit here and say he isn't at all, but he's a bit of a maverick. And there might be a reason why Real Madrid are not that fussed by him and quite happy he does leave. There's a reason why he's not particularly pushing into Xabi Alonso starting 11 for a new manager who's just come in. He's obviously out of favour. And coming from a different league again, it can take time. The deal as well would be so expensive. The wages would be astronomical. It doesn't make any sense to me. If we are talking, as Tom was mentioning, we've got to think about PSR. Well, when you're signing someone on massive wages like Rodrygo, that's going to really set you back after all the outlay that we're going to be spending this window. So financially, I don't think it makes sense to go Rodrygo over EZE, but player-wise, player on player, I would take EZE all day long.
Tom, let me ask you that. I know Tom's answer is EZE, so that's why I'm skipping over him. But I'm going to put in this question from Raul. Do you guys see a world where we sell both Trossard and Martinelli and replace with both EZE and Rodrygo? Tom, that one for you.
I'd be beyond shocked if that happened. I can see one of them potentially leaving, and I know that Trossard is in talk. Sammy Motbell reported that yesterday, that there is kind of a sense that we're getting closer maybe to that new contract. We don't know if that, by the way, necessarily is an extension. It seems maybe perhaps more so a monetary kind of securing of his immediate future rather than a long-term extension. But when it comes to Martinelli, the only way I could ever see Martinelli leaving is if Bayern Munich suddenly change their stance on the wingers they're going for and put a huge bid in for him, and equally Saudi, if they come in for Martinelli and put a big bid in, because Arsenal aren't going to accept anything from Martinelli that isn't, well above £50 million in my view, potentially significantly more than that. They don't need to, and that's the only way I see Rodrygo coming in personally, is if Martinelli was in particular to go. that's when I might see the Arsenal then make that move. So, I think it's such an obvious choice between Eze and Rodrygo. Eze's ability to play on the left is obviously one as well, right footer, but adds so much to so many other positions that we've got. Adds competition for Nørgaard, so we're not just relying on him to be the only creative force in the midfield. And Zubimendi, if he needs a rest, you can drop in Reiss and put Eze with Nørgaard in the midfield. There's so many options you've got there with Eze, and for the price tag of 67.5 million, it's a bargain. Go and do it.
James, are you good for time? I know you've got a dash. Are you okay for? Okay, you just let me know.
Not like he's got a child or anything.
Keep me on here. Honestly, it's good. It's good. It gives me a breather. It's great.
Tom, you're okay because there's no Love Island tonight. Is that right? Okay, good.
I haven't watched this series. I've been away from it. Although to be fair, the best Victor Gyøkeres meme at the moment is, I can't remember the girl's name, but it's the girl on Love Island. She's in the room talking to the camera. And she goes to cry, but when she goes to cry, she does this, and it just transitions to Gyökeres, and it is astoundingly good.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about. And by the way, if you've got questions for the boys, put a Q in front, and I'll ask it. I'm going to ask Demsek's question because Tom and James, who is leaving? Where is the money coming from? What's the latest? Is Zinchenko staying? I want Kivior to stay. There's an apology. If you guys want to know me holding my hands up when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I was not nice when it came to critiquing Kivior. And I hope he stays. What's the latest with who's leaving? Who's going? Who's bringing in the moolah?
So, I mean, Tom might have more on this than I have. I keep an eye on everything. So how it works, I'm just going to let you all know with Sky in particular, I'm on an email chain. All the information that we get gets pumped on this email chain. So I see everything. And as regards outgoing, it's been quite minimal at this age, actually. There hasn't been too much that I've seen pass by where I've kind of jumped. I think Cole Hein, has he gone? Did he go today? Or is he's about to go?
I haven't seen anything about it, actually.
I thought he might be gone soon. But look,
Sevilla been linked with him.
Yeah, I think that might be edging closer now. But apart from him, I haven't seen any movement in terms of anything concrete yet. But there's no doubt about it. Zinchenko, Nelson, Lokinga, Fabio Vieira, they're going to be looking at new homes, new destinations for these players. But it's not easy. And Arsenal will have a value on these players. Clubs will also be watching what Arsenal will be doing. So Arsenal are buying lots of players. So they're going to be looking, hold on a minute, you're going to have to sell some of your players, sell some of your assets. Well, then they're probably going to go, well, we know you want to sell him. So you want 25 million. I'm not going to give you 25 million because I know you're desperate to get him off your books because you need money. So I'll give you 15 or something. So this is where everything slows up and the negotiations have. Trossard, I've got the same info as Tom in terms of there's a bit of mix with Trossard, and I think that might be one to watch. I think there is discussions about an extension, but there's also discussions with other clubs. There's a lot of interest in Trossard, understandably so, because I think he's a really useful player for some of the top European sides. Bayern Munich have been quite strongly linked. So I think it's a case of watch this space. I think they'll be looking at it, but I think their priority at the moment, especially before the preseason tour, has been, right, let's get the players in that we want. Let's get them in, and then we're going to look at the outgoings after that. But there's going to have to be, isn't there? The squad's now surprisingly quite big, so it needs to be shrunk down a little bit.
Just real quick, Mr. Waffle, we talked about this on the last show with Tom, the Timber interview, and it was very telling, and he said some things, but I think my opinion was that he was just being super honest. I don't think he was trying to throw Mikel Arteta under the bus. But yeah, we've talked about that on a show. You can go find it. When the last show that Tom was on about 2 weeks ago. Okay, so sorry, because it keeps coming up and it's like we're trying to avoid talking about what Timber said, and a lot of people took that and he's killing the players, he's driving them into the ground. But anyway, let me ask you guys this one for you, Tom. Where is it? This one from Paul James, because it kind of linked. How much money is the max we can bring in from sales?
Well, it's very dependent on obviously who. that number could be quite big if Martinelli was, for instance, to go. I'd be expecting upwards of £50 million for him at least. You look at the wingers that have moved in the Premier League this summer. Your Elangas, your Gyökeres, Martinelli's better than those guys, so I'd be expecting more than them. I think, Zinchenko, you're going to be lucky to get. With the length of contract he's got left, it's not like it's only a year. Be lucky to get much more over £10 million, perhaps. Look at Mosquera, young player, Spanish youth international, 15 million quid. Zinchenko, who has really kind of downturned in terms of his potential. His injury record's not great. Only a year left. Not loads of interest in him from significant clubs. You're going to be lucky to get much more over 10 million, I think, in the end. Reiss Nelson, I had a little bit of a tip today that apparently Fulham have stepped up a little bit of their interest. They've signed no one so far, Fulham, this window. One of the clubs that really need to step up their business. If you're a Fulham fan, you've got the right to be feeling pretty impatient about transfers, not Arsenal fans. But yeah, I got a little tip that they might be stepping up their interest. Obviously, they had Nelson on loan last season, and he was really hit by that bad injury. I think it could have been a really decent season for him if he hadn't have had that injury. And then Karl Hein, as James has mentioned, Sevilla, there were reports in Spain this morning to do a quick check on that that are there. So perhaps that's where he goes. Again, not sure how much you're going to get for a third-choice goalkeeper from a club in Sevilla who don't tend to spend loads in these recent years on players. And I feel like there's one other. Fabio Vieira is the other one, who had a decent loan with Porto, and it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. He put in, I think he got into double digits for goals and assists across all comps. But again, you need interest. And the only interest we've heard so far is Carlos Cuesta's Parma. That's the only interest we've heard of so far. And the story there was that Arsenal were looking for a figure of around £20 million. But that's not my info. That comes from Italy. So take that what you will. But if Arsenal can get, say, Zinchenko, Vieira, Hein, or Hain, someone told me it might be Hain. Actually, not. I've been calling him Hein forever, but someone said today it's Hain. Who knows?
He's nearly gone, Tom. Don't worry about it.
I know. I'm not going to have to worry about it too much longer, I don't think. So, yeah, Nelson, Vieira, Zinchenko, and Karl Hein, if those, and Lokinga as well. Again, another player. I think Sevilla had an option of 10, 11 million quid, didn't take it. So that kind of gives you an indication of his value. So maybe 40 total. Unless one of Martinelli or Trossard goes, you might get a bump more than that. But
or Kivior.
And Kivior, yeah. But I really think Arsenal want to now keep him. Unless a really big offer comes in that tempts them. I know his value is probably at its peak right now with what his performances were, but it's a no-brainer to keep him.
I think that's the key. I think it's about what his value is right now. And they will look at it. He showed his worth, obviously, at the back end of last season. Great squad player and squad depth that he'll provide us. But
talk about pressure, James, to step in for big Gabi.
Wasn't he? That was unreal. Proved everybody wrong. I remember seeing some Muppet again, rage bait, right? Again,
names.
Was that me?
No, weren't you? Don't worry.
Was it me?
No, it's more extreme than you. But somebody's saying he's like the worst signing ever in Premier League history, and you just look at his performances, and go, yeah, I think you're wrong there, and you don't know what you're talking about. But look, a terrific player. And this is not anything on him, but you've also, as a club, you've got to look at it and go, well, hold on, what are our sellable assets, and where is that money going to come from? As the question came, and you broke it down pretty well, Tom. The players we mentioned are really going to be worth too much. Whereas a Kivior, because of his performances, what he did in the Champions League in the back end of last season. He's a player that you could recruit quite a decent amount of money. And is there a player? Is there a place on that pitch where I think personally, where maybe we could get rid of somebody? I think centre-back, I think we could get rid of Kivior. If Mosquera comes in, the fact that Calafiori plays there, the fact that Ben White can play there, the fact that Timber can play there, we have enough players in that back line that can cover those centre-back positions. So it wouldn't leave us short. Declan Rice can play there if needs be as well. So it wouldn't leave us short. So I think if a good offer came in, I think the club would almost have to listen, and they may reluctantly let him go. But let's see.
Okay, so I think this is a really important question, and I've been asking a lot of my guests this one. This is from Stephen Richards. With the new players, will the style of play change or even change in formation? I know that you can't be Tom Stradamus here, Tom. We don't know. I mean, we saw a very exciting Mikel Arteta team for 2 seasons, killed teams by half-time. Last year, we got very conservative, possession, obsession in full swing. What do you think with like the Zubimendis, the Gyökeres, if we play the way we did last season, are we setting players up to fail? Your answer to Stephen.
Well, I think that there's no way there should be an expectation we play the way we played last season. Last season was all about damage control. You know, you had a limited squad, so many injuries, so many key players absent at different points, and we had to adapt to that. You know, losing your most talismanic figure in Saka has a huge impact on the team, you know, and we didn't have a consistent kind of right back scenario with Timber coming back from an injury that he never should have played that many minutes at all. But Ben White's absence obviously was a big problem. Lost to Nørgaard for so long. So I could go on, you know. There was so many issues last season that the system, I never expect to see us play again the way in which we played in points last season. If you go back to 23-24 and how dominant we were, and when we had so many more players available, when we had such a verve about our play, a ruthlessness about our play, we'd score one, we'd get the second, and then the third, and then the fourth on so many different occasions. And even if we went a goal down, they looked to be kind of more of a determination to fight back. And this season, you know, I think, what was it? How many points did we drop from winning positions? 21, 22, something like that?
21, yeah.
That was not on the cards in 23-24. There wasn't that fragility about the Arsenal team. And with the depth in the squad, with the strength of the bench we should have. You know, last season, Nathan Butler-Odeji, with respect to him, was coming off the bench. A 22-year-old youngster, his future was already decided, you know, 2 years prior, most likely. There were other youngsters on the bench as well, you know, weren't ever going to get minutes, but were filling up spaces because we just didn't have players. The bench for next season, the second team for next season, is going to be so much more impressive than it has been in a very long time. So I'm expecting us to be an aggressive side, a team that really just continues to pepper the opponent's goal and opponent's keeper with shots. You know, that game at Old Trafford, it's going to be a cauldron of noise being the opening game of the season. But I want us to extinguish that with a really quick start and a really aggressive start that sees either Havertz or Gyökeres or whoever. You know, Zubimendi's influence is all about progressing the ball into dangerous positions, feeding those wide players in particular with, you know, passes that put them on the front foot, you know, and that's something in Partey's game that I think diminished in his last couple of years. There's the progression into those wide areas, and the numbers reflect that. You know, his passes into the final third per 90 in the last 3 seasons went down and down and down. So Mendy's numbers, you know, are going to give Arsenal another extra dimension from that deep position. Reiss continues to take things up a level every single season that he's with us. I'm expecting that again. You know, I think he's already scored more goals for Arsenal than he did on all of his time with West Ham already. And, you know, that added element to his game and improving that part of his game. Set pieces are going to be big. We know that. Gyökeres is big. Norgard is big. Mosquera is big. We've got loads of these massive players. They're all going to be threats as well. So set pieces, again, are obviously going to feature. And I just can't wait to see what we do with all this talent and what Arteta does with all these options.
It's actually really exciting compared to the last 2 windows. James, Nick says Arteta has a real healthy headache picking the correct squad for each game. But I also wanted, I'm not sure, Jojo Rabbit, which, by the way, is an amazing film. If you haven't seen Jojo Rabbit, please go see it. It's absolutely brilliant. Not sure if you're a Chelsea fan or an Arsenal fan, but I wanted to put this up because, you know, the continual beating of Mikel Arteta is what phase is Arne Slot in? What phase is Eddie Howe in? What phase is, you know, Maresca in? Pressure on Mikel this season more than ever. No pressure. Does he have to win? What's your take on, and what do you say to fans who continually ask what phase Mikel Arteta is in?
Well, I mean, Arteta kind of hasn't helped himself because I think he started talking about phases himself, didn't he? This is phase 1, this is phase 2, this is phase 3 too. I think it was, I was the journalist at ESPN, I think it was, Tom, remember his name anyway. Was it Mr. Ollie? Anyway,
James Ollie.
James Ollie, I think it was. I think they had a constant back and forth about which phase you're on because Arteta.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
that's
entertaining.
It
was quite entertaining, to be fair. They're not often that entertaining. Look, the phase is now win now. So that's the phase. I think we can all see it. You don't attack a transfer market this aggressively if you're not looking to win right now. This squad is prepped, primed, and ready to win. I think they were almost ready last season, apart from a striker, and then they had the injuries that set in, and that really put them in a little bit of trouble. This year, if they keep everybody or majority of the squad fit, there's no excuses. It is time to win. It is time to compete on all fronts. And look, that one of the squaddies put up that question about the fact Mikel Arteta is going to have a headache picking his side. That's wonderful. It's about time, because far too often we have been able to pick that side week in, week out, and it's the same side. And if we can do it as fans, the opposition manager could do it, the opposition coaches could do it, and the opposition players know exactly who's playing week in, week out. This is now an opportunity to do things differently. And talking about playing styles, well, Tom was right. At times last year, we had to suck it up as fans because of the difficulties we had with the players available. There are things we didn't do well last year, in particular losing leads. Why did we do that? Because I don't think there was enough quality further up the field, actually. And I think it was more of a fragility of going, we scored one. I don't know if we're going to score another. I'm not too sure. And just that element just changed the mentality of the players. Whereas the players we're bringing in, we should be creating even more chances now next season. They should be going for the jugular time and time again. You go in the lead, you go for your second, you go for your third. And I can see that being the mentality switch this time around.
Okay, so before I let you guys go, we have to talk about and get your takes on Madueke. Adam says, Tom and James provide some clarity. Can you provide clarity on the Noni deal? I've seen unsubstantiated reports that the deal is essentially 50 million over 5 years, if credible. Seems like good business. Very polarizing, as I said at the top of the show. We talked about the fan behavior behind the signing, but I want to talk about the footballer real quick. I spoke to, and I know I told the guys this before, but some of them don't like to hear it. I spoke to Jason Cundy, who's covered him for Chelsea TV and watched him for a number of years now. Likes the player. A couple of my Chelsea mates are sad to see him go. Chelsea fans, of course, talking about, well, thanks for the money. But there are some Chelsea fans who are bummed that he has gone. Tom, where does he fit? What do you think of Madueke? And also, can you answer Adam's question about the deal?
Yeah, well, it's a 48.5 million pound deal with 3.5 million in add-ons. That's the breakdown of that, and it's got a lot of press, particularly the price. I look at Madueke and I think, in a world where valuations of players are fair, I would have been comfortable around the 35 million pound figure. The reality is, in this market, never going to happen. Look at as we've already mentioned with Martinelli, the prices of other wingers that have gone around this summer. You're just not going to get him for that amount of money. It's going to be closer to the 50 million. And in reality, Arsenal have signed him for less than Spurs are paying for Kudus, who had a worse season last year than Madueke. They're getting him for less than Elanga, significantly less than what Man United are going to pay for Brian Mbeumo, obviously, who had no intention of being a number two. And that, I think, is the crux of this, is that Arsenal had to find a player who they felt was competent and good enough so that the pressure could be taken off of Saka. And last year, when we obviously lost Saka for 4 months, that effectively ended Arsenal's title race. Arsenal's hopes of winning a title without their best player. If Liverpool had lost Salah for 4 months, it would have been the same scenario for them. So having the ability, just having the ability to find a player of that quality to be a number two who is willing to be, a player that's going to be behind Saka is incredibly difficult. Arsenal's priority signing for this was Mbeumo. He had no intention of playing second fiddle at his stage of his career to Saka. Now, some people might say, well, then why is what's Madueke's mentality if he's willing to be a number two? Well, obviously, at Brentford, Mbeumo is the guy. He's going to Man United, and he's going to be the guy. Madueke at Chelsea is not the guy. He's not really had the opportunity there to flex his wings, I don't think. I personally, having been a fan of him at PSV and liking his talent there, was gutted when he went to Chelsea because I thought, that's another young player who's going to waste a lot of talent. I'm worried about Gyökeres and what this move is going to do to him. I've been worried about a number of players because there's not many Cole Palmer success stories in the Chelsea list of transfers that they've gone through in the last few years. Most talents that have gone there, it's not gone as particularly well. So with Madueke, I always thought, and for the records, I went on to FK's show on Latte Firm a few weeks ago. way before the news that Madueke was going, and he does a series called Unpopular Signings. Madueke was my unpopular signing before any of this happened. And so he obviously, when it happened, I was texting like, I can't believe that show is about to get so many comments put onto it. But it was because I thought he was being wasted there. And I thought we needed depth to Saka, and to find an option that's willing to be that depth is really hard. But it's still not a price tag. I'm still coming to terms with it, but I will properly judge him when he gets on the pitch, not before then, because that's just silly and it's just pointless to do so.
James,
yeah, look,
have your say.
Yeah, look. First of all, from Chelsea's perspective, they do their business very differently to every other club, and it's all about looking at their profit margins. They'll look at Madueke and go, "Well, hold on a minute, we paid 20, was it 28? I could be wrong. 28 odd million from PSV. We've sold him for 50 million, right? We just made 20 million off him. That looks great in the books, and that's what they go off. They've just signed Gyökeres now to come in. They've got plenty of players in that position. I think it's a really positive signing in terms of looking at the player. If he's willing to battle for his place, if he's willing to fight a Bukayo Saka, if he's probably been given, you're not just maybe pigeonholed on that right-hand side, we can use you on the left-hand side. I don't think he's as effective on the left-hand side, don't get me wrong. But so for the player's perspective, I think if we look at that as fans, we should be really pleased that he's willing to fight for his place, because we need players like that. We don't want players to come here spitting their dummy out if they're not in the team, or players who demand that they're in that side, in that starting 11. We don't want that. We want a squad that are competing with each other. Mikel Arteta spoke about that for years and years, about bringing in competition for places, which raises the standards within the club. And that's something he'll be looking at. We only have to go back to last season and look at when Saka got injured. And that was it. We then put our hopes on a 17-year-old who is a unbelievably talented young 17-year-old. But he's not quite at that level yet because he's developing, and even Wanyeri. And it was too much of a step up for him at that stage. We needed depth. We needed backup. What a great signing it is. I just struggle with the outrage. I still think the outrage goes back to the fact of the timing of it, the timing and the fee. But we need to get our heads out of our backsides in terms of the fee, because these are the fees that are being paid these days. That is just how it is. That is just where we are. We shouldn't get involved in the fees. Let the clubs deal with that. But the timing, you can't do anything about that. It's all about business, all about each transfer is different. Some take longer than others. I think Madueke is an excellent signing. I think he's a dangerous player. I think he's unique. I think he is one of those players where we can look at getting him the ball in one-on-one situations, when last season all we had was Bukayo Saka, who really was that player that we wanted to find with the ball and then go on Bukayo, do something, because it wasn't happening on the left-hand side. I think to add another player like that into the mix is only positive. And his numbers, actually, if you look at them, they're not bad. They're not bad at all. He's got a lot of quality. Can he improve? Absolutely. But he's 23 years old. That's all right. He's got plenty of time to improve, plenty of time to come in his own. He's signing a 5-year contract. He's going to be at the club for a while. I think it's really smart business. And we've been craving for a deeper squad. I just wish Arsenal fans would just remember that. This is what we need. We need this squad depth. So players like that need to come in, and the club are doing it. That's a brilliant signing.
Brilliant. Thank you, James. I know you've got to run. And Tom, do you have to? I'm going to stay on for just a few minutes to do some housekeeping bits. But James, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on. If you are not following James, please do so. I saw you doing back pages the other night. It was lovely.
I did, yes. Back pages tonight for the first time with Henry Winter as well in a mix. Yeah, it was good. It's great opportunity, doing more and more. But looking forward to the season starting now. This is all the fluff, and you'll see me talking nonsense transfer business on Wednesday. But maybe it won't be nonsense business on Wednesday, because I'm going to be in the studio, and it could be a really good day to be in the studio on Wednesday. So, yeah, make sure you're watching Sky Sports News, everybody.
Yeah, we appreciate that tip. Thank you, James. Take care, at ease, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Cheers, mate.
Find that video.
Oh, wait, bring him back.
Bring him back. Find that video.
Look, I've got a crying baby, and then I'm finding it.
When they're in bed.
See you, James. Take care. Lots of love to you, James. Brilliant stuff. Tom?
Yes, mate.
What have you got coming up? What's going on?
I'll be on TalkSport at 8 o'clock UK time, just chatting about all the latest Arsenal.
8
news.
o'clock. So the what's that show? The
just under 2 hours time.
The Wizencroft show.
It'll be who is it? It's going to be Bardell and Hatchard is who it's going to be.
Oh, Kevin Hatchard is on the show tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'm going to do a deep dive into Mosquera, the player, with him, and also a deep dive into Zubimendi with our European football expert, Kevin Hatchard.
Well, yeah, that's where I'll be at 8. But other than that, the other 8 o'clock time is AM every single day on the channel.
All right. Well, I've kept you for an hour and 11 minutes. So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to do some housekeeping bits. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
And by the way, the boss, you just got a yellow card, by the way.
Hey, well, in Wes's defense, I did say on the show it was a shirt I'd got 8 years ago because it's a sporting shirt and it no longer fits me. So
no, I saw them saying that you don't want to lose your press pass and all that nonsense. So
that envious.
I
comment.
put them.
I have to get the bingo card out, Sophie, and tick it off because it's all they've got. It's all they've got. I invite them onto phone-in shows and they don't turn up. So what can I do? I do?
Listen. And Mr. Waffle, you're close. Let's all and Tammy. Anyway, I'll do my housekeeping now. Bye, Tom. Thanks, mate.
Tammy's a legend. See you later.
She's a legend. At ease. Take care. Thank you so much to Tom Canton. If you're not following him or following his show, then you should be at Tom Canton Media at the Gooner Talk TV. Thanks to the boys for being on today. Wesbird, you were being kind. Let's just. Okay, so I'm going to have more mods in the chat. We had over 600 people in live chat today. And by the way, on your way out, it costs nothing to hit the like button. James giving you a bit of an exclusive about what might be coming down the pipeline on Sky Sports on Wednesday as well. Thanks to both of them. Two of the real good guys, honest when they come on here with their perspective. And thank you, John. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Those listening on Apple and Spotify, please make sure you subscribe and you like the show. It really helps the show as well. It's been a brilliant last few days, right? You guys should be happy. You finally got your guy. This picture that Fabrizio Romano did, I really liked and wanted to share with you. This celebration I am waiting for, you guys. The Gabriel Gyøkeres moment. Fingers crossed. Please, please, please. But this will be iconic the first time it happens. And I cannot wait for it to happen. And I'm pretty sure I know you feel the same way. I've had my say on Madueke. I want us to be as positive as possible going forward. Look at the pictures of the squad in Marbella pre-season, seeing these two together. We shared these the other day. Seeing young Max Dowman out there as well has been a sight for sore eyes. And of course the signings that some people aren't excited about, the Norgards of the world. I am. Zubimendi will talk about tomorrow with Kevin Hatchard as well. And we're going to learn a lot more from our European football expert about Mosquera, just like we did when we spoke to Natalie Sawyer about Norgard, a show that you can find on the channel as well. I'm really excited about something that might be potentially happening at Highbury Squad, and I can't tell you yet, but let me just say, I should probably not say anything. If this comes off, it's going to be really bloody amazing for the coming season. That's all I can say. So there's a lot to look forward to, all right? Let's always be respectful. Let's always have our opinions. Let's be pure and say what we feel and say it with respect. And I'm not going to keep preaching. I don't want to sound preachy. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. But you guys know how I feel about all that type of stuff. We're going to have a show every single week live this week. And on Wednesday, hoping to have an opposing view of a rival club, which I think is always a good and interesting conversation. But keep your tabs on the community page on YouTube and, of course, on our other social platforms. And I will let you know when it's all happening. The show doesn't exist without you guys. You guys are the best. And Tammy, I'm going to make you an admin. I'm trying. You know what it is? I got to get your YouTube. This is You Are Tammy Steels, but when I go to add you on YouTube, it doesn't let me. But I'm going to email you anyway. Yes, cooking like Berta. How about that? We've got I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing this season. Lots of really good stuff coming. Love each and every one of you. Go out, be safe, be good to each other. And, we will be back tomorrow. I believe it's at 4 p.m. I'm going to try and get better at, because we get great guests on the show. These people are really busy. So our timing fluctuates. But I know that doesn't help the listeners sometimes, but you can always catch it on replay. So I'm going to do my best to have staple shows. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to announce those in the coming week. Monday Madness will always be. We're going to be doing live shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then on Tuesday, Thursday, you'll probably get pre-recorded stuff, but it's going to be really good stuff, I promise you. But there'll be a Highbury Squad show for you to enjoy every single day for the coming season. Right, that's all I've got. Oh, God, the microphone popped there. Sorry, didn't mean to make you guys go deaf. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Please go check out Tom's channel as well. Don't forget to watch James on Sky Sports on Wednesday. Listen to Tom on TalkSport. And I'll share a TalkSport segment I did over the weekend as well. Okay, now I'm just babbling. I'll see you guys later. At ease, everyone. And don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. I love you.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Wesbird, I'll check out the email, and I think I owe John an email too. He sent me a design about something. Anyway, I'm really going now. I'm going to go have my tea.